Good evening and welcome to BBC Newsline. The DUP says it spent a donation of over £400,000 in last year's EU referendum campaign. The party, which has been under pressure to name its donor, today disclosed where it got the money from. The cash came from a little-known group of pro-union business people led by a Scottish Conservative, Richard Cook. The money from the Constitutional Research Council was spent mainly on advertising in Britain. The donor's identity was revealed at the same time as the Electoral Commission published how much parties spent on last year's referendum campaign. Our political correspondent Stephen Walker reports.
Scottish Conservative Richard Cook is the man behind the Constitutional Research Council, a group that has attracted little attention until today. A former Tory parliamentary candidate, he has a pro-union and pro-Brexit background.
This organisation made a decision that it thought that Brexit would be better for the union. Because of that, it decided that it wanted to invest in the Brexit campaign. It had an awful lot of money, more than £400,000, and it started to look about where it could put that money.
So where did the money go? The breakdown of the DUP spending provided by the Electoral Commission shows that the party spent a total of £425,621. Of that, £10,823 was spent in Northern Ireland, more than half of that with Belfast Telegraph owners, independent news media. But that was dwarfed by the biggest chunk of the cash, the £282,000 the DUP spent on advertising in the Metro, a free sheet only available in Great Britain. Almost £100,000 went to a Cambridgeshire company supplying promotional and advertising material, and £32,750 went to a Canadian IT and consultancy company. The DUP say they were given more than they actually spent, and the remainder of the donation, some £9,000, was used by the party.
We received, I think, £435,000 from the CRC. Of that, we spent over £425,000 in the EU referendum campaign, with about £9,000 left, which with their agreement we transferred to our normal funds for pro-union campaigning. And so we're giving total transparency on this.
So does this donation raise any questions?
Who are these people and why are they giving so much money to the DUP? Why did they decide that in order to help Brexit, to support this Brexit campaign that they were in favour of, they wanted to give money to the Democratic Unionists in Northern Ireland?
The DUP say it's now time that the issue of party funding is addressed.
We have revealed the details of our donor for the European Union referendum, and now I think the ball is firmly in the court of the other parties. Will they do the same?
According to the Electoral Commission, the only other parties to spend money in the EU campaign were the SDLP and the TUV, who spent under £10,000. The issue of wider political funding has been raised on the campaign trail. Some parties keep their donations secret, others make the information public. All the parties say they support transparency. Post-election will discover if their words and action match up. Stephen Walker, BBC Newsline, Belfast.
A lorry driver who was driving on the wrong side of the road when he crashed into a van, killing the driver, has been jailed for 9 months. 51-year-old Albertas Daskavikius is originally from Lithuania and now lives in Bon Court in Ballykelly. Gordon Adair has more.
Sean McElwee was driving his van between Strabane and Omagh around 10 o'clock on an April night in 2015 when he was suddenly confronted by every driver's nightmare, an articulated lorry bearing down on him on the wrong side of the road. There was just time for his father, who was a passenger in the van, to shout, "Where's that idiot going?" before the terrible impact which took Sean's life. His father survived and was in court today to see the driver sentenced. Albertas Daskavikius is 51 and originally from Lithuania, but with an address now at Bon Court in Ballykelly. He was jailed for 9 months for causing death by careless driving, with a further 9 months on licence. He had been initially charged with causing death by dangerous driving, but later pleaded guilty to the lesser charge. A defence lawyer said there was no evidence that his client had been speeding or using a mobile phone. He hadn't been drinking and the lorry was roadworthy. He said his client had not taken a calculated risk, but but that it was simply a terrible error of judgment which had tragic consequences. At the time of the accident, De Vecchius had no insurance. He was given a separate 9-month sentence for that and banned from driving for 10 years. Several members of Sean McElwee's family sobbed quietly in the public gallery as a prison officer put handcuffs on De Vecchius and led him away. The family declined to say anything as they left court. Gordon Adair, BBC Newsline, Dungannon.
A man has been arrested in connection with the death of a woman in Bessbrook yesterday. The 48-year-old is accused of having and supplying drugs. £2,000 was also found. The woman, who was in her 30s, was found in the Orior Park area. The loss of another tree at the Dark Hedges in County Antrim has led to renewed calls for more to be done to protect them. The trees near Armoy have been made famous by the television series Game of Thrones. Here's Sarah Gervin.
The calm after the storm, and another victim felled at the Dark Hedges. These trees have been here for more than 200 years, but just a few seconds on Game of Thrones saw them become a worldwide tourist attraction. And that's the problem. More tourists means more vehicles, and traffic is thought to be weakening the roots of the ageing trees. These tourists agree something should be done.
And also, I guess, because it's Mother Nature as well. I mean, it's something that you need to protect and look after.
To protect it is important so we can see it in the future.
Obviously, it's something we have to look after.
You wouldn't want to see it shut as it's such a tourist destination, but you've also got to take into account to look after the surroundings.
There are proposals to close the road to traffic, but the process will take months. Those who love this place say only an immediate change will guarantee this landmark's future.
These are our natural heritage and we must protect them. So where a building would have a listed status, these trees need to be listed, and we must do all in our power to ensure that they are preserved, and that should include restricting the traffic along this road.
There are just 2 series of Game of Thrones left, but it's very much hoped the Dark Hedges will survive much longer after the programme that made them famous ends. Sarah Gervin, BBC Newsline at the Dark Hedges.
Rory McIlroy has defended playing golf with President Trump earlier this week. In a statement on his Twitter account, he said it wasn't an endorsement or political statement of any kind. It was quite simply a game of golf. In football, Derry City made an impressive start to the Premier Division season with a comfortable 4-1 victory over Bohemians. Aaron McInnes scored a penalty and substitute Nathan Boyle made it 2-0 from close range. Boyle added a third with a low strike early in the second half, with Lucas Schubert scoring the fourth. Well, now finally here's Jeff with the weekend weather.
Hello, good evening. Well, after a brief pause this evening, the rain that we saw through the second half of today will return overnight. The showers being driven in on a freshening southwesterly breeze. In fact, we could see some gale force gusts around the north and west overnight tonight. It means we get off to quite a wet and windy start to the weekend. It's a picture that will improve through the day, that band of rain gradually tracking east, and we'll see our warmest temperatures through the first half of the day, highs of 10 or 11 degrees underneath that cloud cover and with the mild air. But once the rain clears out of the way, those temperatures will drop off. In fact, just before dusk we'll see temperatures around 6 or 7 degrees. And that rain will continue its path eastwards, always a bit warmer in front of the rain. These temperatures behind in the clearing skies will drop away across Scotland and Northern Ireland. And as we go overnight, Saturday into Sunday, a relatively cold night. In some rural spots, temperatures hovering just above freezing. So quite a chilly start to the day on Sunday, but again we're starting to introduce that more mild air as the rain comes in. It's all coming in from the south and southwest, so temperatures climbing up to 9, maybe 10 degrees. But lots of weather heading in our direction at the moment, quite active systems out of the Atlantic, and these tightly packed isobars are a sign of the wind that is heading in our direction. By the time we start next week, we're into some cooler air and the temperatures will drop away, and it's really not until the middle of next week that we start to see some more settled conditions.
And our next BBC Newsline is at 5:20 tomorrow evening. In the meantime, you can keep updated with news online. From all of us here in the programme, good night and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.